I am talking to Tom Lishman, who is head of sound for the Pleasance Venues, all of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. So perhaps you could tell me how long you've been doing this for and what your job entails.
Sure. Well, for my sins, this is my 11th year doing the same job. 11th Edinburgh on the trot, working for Pleasance. I'm head of sound for the group in Edinburgh, which means that I look after the sound requirements for all the shows in our 25 theatres.
Right.
Which is 22 of ours and then 3 of musical theatre at George Square.
And in each theatre, how many shows?
The venue with the least shows in has 3 or 4 a day. The venue with the most in has 9 or 10 a day. Most of them have, I suppose the average is probably about 7 or 8 a day. And over the festival we're dealing with somewhere just north of 200 shows. So it's quite fun. Yeah. Keeps us off the streets.
And I mean, obviously all with varying different levels of audio in those shows.
Absolutely, yes.
So from the one stand-up comedian to...
the ones that I love seeing when the tech spec comes in, play no sound, which makes me go, that's what I can completely ignore, to, it's obviously a lot of our output is comedy, so a lot of shows which are one man with a mic, one woman with a mic, which is great. Through almost all of our larger venues have at least 1 or 2 properly technically complex shows.
Right.
One of the great things about the last few years, as we've grown up as venues, is where 10 years ago you dreamt of transferring a show from the Festival Fringe to the West End, or from the West End to the Festival Fringe. In the last few years we've done both several times.
Right.
And it's a very different experience for them, but we're confident we can do that, and that's a great thing to have.
Brilliant. So do you design all the different sound systems in each venue?
Essentially, yes. We design a basic system, which is normally the same each year in any venue.
Right.
Obviously, especially in the larger ones, if the time has a very specific requirement, we'll try and bend around to fit it.
Right.
But as a rule, we put in a core system which we reckon will cover most of the requirements most of the time.
Right.
And then obviously, if companies want to either hire through us or bring their own kit in, we facilitate that and make it work for them. The most complex systems would be the Grand on Pleasance side and George 1 at George Square. George 1 is our biggest musical theatre venue, and it has quite a small programme in terms of numbers of shows, in that there are 3 main shows and then occasional guest shows in there.
That's why you've got Jerry Springer.
That's why we've got Jerry Springer and Jerry Springer, Bloodbath and Honk are the 3 shows that are in all festival, and then a few add-ons and bits and pieces which come in there. There we configure the system very much around the requirements of Bloodbath, which is designed by my colleague Gareth Owen from Orbital. And Gareth very much came in and said, I'd like to do this, can I do it? And of course in that situation we're able to say, yes, of course you can. We did an amicable agreement about the splitting of costs, and it's an advantage for all the shows. Right. He's put in a much better console. We've got one of those lovely new Digi designs, which is working very well indeed.
Oh, brilliant.
And that's working really well for the other shows. He's provided a radio mic system which is being shared by Honk. We've been able to fit that one in very well too. Bloodbath sounds terrific, we're very pleased with it. And it's Gareth, although of course he moans at me all the time, has actually been able to design his show without compromise, given the good structure he wanted, and that's fabulous. We've done a slightly similar thing with Gecko in the Grand, who are the most technically complex show in the Grand, which again has a core system that goes in. Then we had our standard core system, which is D&B and a Yamaha console, which is what we've put in there for several years now.
A digital Yamaha?
Yeah. Yes, indeed. It's normally a PM5D, it's actually an M7 this year. This in terms of, because although Gecko is a show with a lot of playback and quite a lot of radio mics and lots of little bits and pieces, it's physical theatre, there's lots of bits and pieces. We're calling it Gecko, that's the company name, how very rude of me, it's called the Overcoat. And that is, and there we've slotted all their requirements on top of our core system. So they brought in we brought in for them a radio mic system. They have lots of bits and pieces which are mic'd on stage. All sorts of tricks and toys they've got, which again are slotted into our core system. On the other side, we're sitting next to Beside, which has 60-something seats, can't quite remember, which is typical of our tiny little venues. In that it has a little EVS 40 speaker system. It sports a DI box and 2 mics and a baby Soundcraft desk, and has 2 nominees for the Perrier Award playing inside it, so that works quite well for us as well.
Brilliant. So,
hang on, I can't do that, can I? And has, is it 1 or 2? I can't remember. And has 1, or I'm not sure, is it 2 nominees for the Comedy Awards inside it?
Yes, because it's not Perrier anymore.
Not Perrier anymore. I have to take that one out, sorry. That should have been doing it for too long, obviously, if I got the awards.
So, I mean, what keeps you coming back for 11 years? What's so fabulous about the Pleasance? Well, I mean, the environment's gorgeous.
It's always a unique challenge. I've seen it grow. When my first year we had, I think, 11 venues, we now have 25.
Yeah.
And our biggest venue was Pleasance 1, which has something in the region of 320 seats.
Yeah.
And now it's the Grand, which has 740.
Yeah, that's quite a big step, isn't it?
We've grown a lot, we've added the extra sites, I think we're, as a company, I think we're more comfortable in our own shoes than we were 10 years ago. They're not complacent, because every year it's a fringe festival, something happens which completely turns on our head, a new idea comes up, somebody wants something radically different, and what's nice is that we're there to adapt to that. Partly, of course, is the feeling of being part of the family.
Yeah.
And for a lot of us, the training aspect of our work is very important.
Right.
Which, I mean, there are an awful lot, although our formal training is almost zero, obviously a lot of our staff are at the beginning of their career, are either students or recent ex-students, and the younger part of the industry is full of people who have done a few years with Pleasance and then accelerated, gone very fast in the next few years in their career. I think we're a great learning ground, and that's very important to me. I think it's very important to all of us, actually.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, do you like a lot of lighting companies send up manufacturers send up people to do training on the consoles, and do you get the same kind of support from manufacturers?
To an extent. Most of my support comes through Orbital Sound, who have been our hire company for longer than I've been around.
And they do all of the Pleasance
They
venues?
do all of the venues, absolutely, yes. And they also do Gilded Balloon down the road.
Right.
So the opposition gets in as well.
So there's a lot of kit in here then from Orbital?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got we now no longer fit inside one Arctic, it's now 2 Arctics between us and Gilded Balloon. Which for a little fringe festival feels quite large the day it leaves the warehouse.
Yeah, I bet it does.
So the bulk of our training and support comes through me and my colleagues and the people at Orbital.
Right.
They send people up to work on our fit up. They do an amount of training in London for us. It's something that we're looking at the moment, actually. We're talking to Yamaha possibly about next year having a guy on site for a couple of days.
Fantastic.
Because again, as we've grown, as we're using more digital consoles, we've decided there's probably a hole to plug where we all get so busy that we could actually be doing more training.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you mentioned, my lighting colleagues have the chaps from 088 here for quite a lot of the festival. Actually, they've been around, which has been lovely, having that continuity and that training. To be honest, I don't think the biggest thing people take away is actually the formal trade. I can now work this piece of equipment.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is the experience of running a venue and taking responsibility, or running the sound in a venue, or mixing a show, whatever it might be. By necessity, people get opportunities here that they wouldn't get with their level of experience elsewhere. And we have a whole load of people who are now in senior technical jobs who started with us X years ago. Right. Matt, who's our production manager or technical operations manager, he seems to have 2 titles and flip the 2 at the moment, which is quite strange. But Matt Britton, who I think we'll be talking to later on, he started his venue crew when he was a student. And here he is 10 years later running it.
So you say everything's hired from Orbital, and they've been supplying you for the last 11 years as well, or longer?
Longer. I would guess it's about 15, 16, but without asking somebody who's been here for longer, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
And obviously that's a relationship which should work very well for them and for us. One of the huge advantages that I have as the head of sound for Pleasance is an awful lot of their staff have come up and done part of our fit-up over the years. They very kindly supply us with 1 or 2 people every year to come and work with us just for the first week putting the shows in. And now the theatre director at Orbital has been up before, the head of sales has been up, the hire manager's been up, all these now senior people in the organisation who've come up, worked at Pleasance, seen what we're about. And so I think that, for me, that makes a tremendous difference. And they give us a lot of support. I think we get an awful lot of helping hand where a company who are less aware of how we work simply wouldn't be doing that.
Right.
And that's great, that's really valuable.